Certain synthetic fibers contain phthalates and other endocrine disrupting chemicals which can interfere with hormone regulation when absorbed through the skin. Black women are diagnosed with uterine fibroids at 2 to 3 times the rate of other groups, and it often shows up with more severe symptoms. Hi, so today we're going to be talking about something that affects you and I both, and it is endocrine disrupting chemicals, specifically in synthetic braiding hair. So before we even get started, I just want to point out 2 disclaimers. The first disclaimer being that your girl is not a doctor, but your girl did some research. I consulted with Dr. Google, and we had a conversation with me doing a lot of the asking of the questions and it giving me a lot of the responses. Second disclaimer, this is not a shaming session. I am hoping that the conversation that we're having here is going to be a constructive one and not one that is full of shaming people. Because let's be honest, while we're talking about endocrine disrupting chemicals specific to synthetic hair, we are exposed to these chemicals on a daily basis through products that are not synthetic hair. We're talking cosmetic products, your everyday makeup. We're talking about fragrances in your detergent. We're talking about plastic containers that a lot of us store our food in. So while we look at someone else and say, why are you wearing synthetic hair? We should recognize the other 3 fingers that are pointing right back at us that say, well. So this is all to say that this discussion that we're having here is to empower each other with information and allow us to make informed decisions moving forward. We're going to stand together as we embark on this healthy and healing journey. Let's get into the video. So if you go to the beauty supply store and you're trying to purchase your favorite hair care product, let's say a leave-in conditioner, what you're often going to see on the warning label: no silicones, no parabens, no phthalates. I don't know how to pronounce that one. What really are these chemicals, and why is it important that they're not included in the formulation of our everyday hair care products or just our beauty products? So you heard me in the beginning talk about this term, endocrine disrupting chemicals. We're just going to be referring to it as EDCs. So when I say EDCs, I'm talking about endocrine disrupting chemicals. Endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs, is basically fancy talk for chemicals that are toxic for our bodies, in the sense that they can interrupt the way that our hormones regulate our body. When you go out to purchase your synthetic braiding hair, to do your box braids, to do your boho braids, to do your Senegalese braids, and you look at the packaging, I just recently realized that these do not have an ingredients label. And so I started asking myself, like, what the deal is? What is the problem? So apparently the FDA, that regulates cosmetics and all the personal care products that we use, does not require companies to disclose chemicals in braiding hair. So our outres, our kanekalons, our expressions, they're not required to disclose the chemicals that are in synthetic braiding hair. And so for something that stays on your scalp and stays on your skin for days and even weeks at a time, this lack of transparency gets a little troubling, because not only do we not know what is in these chemicals unless we actively go out and search, which the average person a lot of times wouldn't even do, but we've seen a trend of people actually reporting that they're having adverse reactions to the hair, to the braiding hair, but haven't really for a long time been able to pinpoint that it actually is the hair, until maybe they've heard someone else talk about it and they say, oh my God, I can totally relate. This is also the part where I say, if you find that this video is of value to you or anyone that you know, feel free to share it, feel free to subscribe. We should first start with just a little bit of a deep dive into exactly what endocrine disrupting hormones really are and why it's important when it comes to Black women using synthetic braiding hair. So our endocrine system is our body's control center for hormones. And what are hormones? They are basically in charge of a lot of things. They regulate our mood, they regulate our growth, our sleep, our metabolism, and even reproduction. So EDCs can then sneak into our bodies through things like plastic containers, cosmetics, as I've mentioned before, and even our synthetic hair. So they can either mimic our hormones or they can block our hormones from getting to their target sites so that our system is balanced. So in other words, it doesn't really let our hormones do their jobs. And so after a while, there's something called hormonal imbalance that comes into play. And this can often lead to some really serious health issues. What health issues affect Black women more, and how do EDCs play a role? Okay. So statistics have shown that Black women are disproportionately affected by health issues that EDCs can then worsen. You and I have an auntie, a mom, a cousin somewhere who has struggled with fibroids, breast cancer, even certain autoimmune disorders. So when we talk about fibroids, it says that Black women are diagnosed with uterine fibroids at 2 to 3 times the rate of other groups. And it often shows up with more severe symptoms. I've seen it. And some studies suggest that EDCs that are often found in plastics, plastic containers, and personal hair care products, they could be linked to fibroid development. When we talk about breast cancer, although Black women are diagnosed with breast cancer at similar rates to white women, Black women under 50 are more likely to be diagnosed with aggressive forms of the disease, because EDCs can often mimic estrogen, and they may play a role in the development of hormone-sensitive cancers, autoimmune disorders. Conditions like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis are also common among Black women. And EDC exposure is suspected to contribute to immune system dysregulation, which can aggravate and potentially even trigger autoimmune responses. The big elephant in the room here is that these health issues are not minor inconveniences. These can have life-threatening consequences. So the more we learn about EDCs and the chemicals that are found in synthetic braiding hair, the more we realize just how important transparency really is, or how troubling the lack of transparency is. So I also recently found out about this ACV wash, apple cider vinegar wash, before braiding your hair, to make sure that it strips the hair itself of all of the coatings that are added to it. But the issue with ACV, which I've tried and it hasn't worked for me, is that ACV doesn't get rid of the actual chemicals or the actual ingredients that synthetic hair is made out of. And ACVs don't really penetrate and neutralize things past just the coating on the synthetic hair. Certain synthetic fibers contain phthalates and other endocrine-disrupting chemicals, which can interfere with hormone regulation when absorbed through the skin. Research specifically on synthetic hair is limited. However, studies have raised concerns about potential exposure risks associated with plastic-based products in prolonged contact with the skin. Synthetic hair also contains volatile organic compounds like toluene and formaldehyde. Some synthetic hair fibers may be treated with flame retardants to make them less flammable. And flame retardants have been linked to potential health concerns, including hormone disruption. We're seeing a trend here, and developmental effects. Heavy metals. There's some concern about potential traces of heavy metals like lead in lower quality synthetic hair, which could contribute to health risks over time. So let's talk a little bit about exposure level and whether that matters when it comes to our use of synthetic braiding hair. So basically, Dr. Google says that while coming into contact with EDCs once may not have significant health impacts, regular exposure over time can lead to health risks. So 3 things to note. EDCs don't always exit our bodies quickly, and so they can build up and potentially lead to higher risk for health issues. Second thing is proximity to the scalp. Synthetic braiding hair sits close to the scalp for long periods of times where your skin can absorb chemicals more easily. So it's important to understand the frequency and the proximity of exposure. So using synthetic hair over time may actually compound these risks, and that is another reason why transparency in labels on these products is crucial. So basically, the point of all of this research is that Black women are exposed to products and chemicals and ingredients that are contributing to the health disparities that we're seeing, especially with the fact that they affect our community at a higher rate. Just our hair itself is at the heart of our identity, and styling our hair, whether it's with any sort of extensions or whether it's with our own hair, it's part of a culture, it's part of self-care, it's part of self-expression. It's almost spiritual. It builds our communities when we can do each other's hair. Our hair is a symbol of our history, not just where we're coming from, but where we're going. We're specifically speaking to synthetic braiding hair because this is something that we use regularly and we've used for generations at a time, and we use for long periods of times. And this is also the one thing that we don't fully know and fully understand: the ingredients and the chemicals that are used to manufacture and to put these things together that we place on ourselves. So what can we do to protect ourselves from EDC exposure? There's a lot of research that's ongoing right now about the possible correlations of products of synthetic braiding hair and those chronic health issues that I mentioned earlier, the cancers, the fibroids. So we're going to stay on top of those developments. We are living at a time where information is literally at the tips of our fingers. We are bridging the digital divide where more and more people have access to technology and therefore have access to information. And so the more we know, the more we can protect ourselves and the more we can protect our communities and our kids and our neighbors, especially if they look just like us and they're consuming the same products that we have consumed for generations at a time. And so we're going to be a little more ingredient conscious when it comes to the products that we use. Can we source and can we support and can we patronize healthier alternatives? So staying informed and asking questions. The second thing that we're going to have to do, which was part of the first thing, was looking for hypoallergenic options. So options that are healthier for us, for the environment. The third thing that we're going to do, and the whole premise of this video, is to somehow push for labeling laws. So yes, the FDA does require disclosure for some beauty products and some personal products, and synthetic braiding hair should be among this list, especially if people have reported having adverse reactions after being exposed and using these products. And I have my own personal experience as well. And it's actually something that occurred to me accidentally, and I don't think in this day and age we should be accidentally finding out that the products that we're using could potentially, How can you submit a complaint to the FDA? So let's talk a little bit about divine timing, because God was like, I don't want you to give these people the wrong information. So when I originally searched this online, I found that the FDA would be the ones that regulate synthetic braiding hair because they're a type of cosmetic product. However, I actually went ahead and submitted my report, and right when I was about to post this video, I got a response from the FDA pretty quick, if you ask me, letting me know that actually this kind of complaint will be sent to the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, the CPSC, because synthetic hair actually falls under consumer goods rather than cosmetic products. So I will try this again, and I will probably let you know about the update in the next video. And so I think when we start pressuring these regulatory bodies and we start expressing our concern about the lack of transparency, I think we're going to make a move. So if you don't want to do it for yourself, think about your kids, think about your nieces and your nephews. Dedicate 10 minutes of your time and submit a report. And so what we're asking for is better labeling practices, because when we make these decisions, we don't want to make them blindly. We want to make informed decisions. And as I've mentioned, some people might say, yeah, well, if we want to go cold turkey on synthetic braiding hair, we might as well go cold turkey on everything else that also has EDCs. But the point of labeling transparency is that it gets to be your choice about whether or not you choose to continue consuming these items. If you choose to cut out the synthetic hair and keep buying the detergents with EDCs, at least you're making an informed decision. If you choose to stick with the synthetic hair and stop buying the cosmetics that have EDCs, again, at least you're making the informed decision. And so all of the research and all of the data that I've done, I've cited in the description box. I sure did. And actually, I'm going to drop another really important YouTube video that speaks to this. That could be a starting point for you. But if you don't want to do that, you can also go on YouTube and do your own research. And these videos are not hard to find. I think it's really important to start, not really pressure YouTube, but nudge YouTube in the direction of resurfacing these videos and resurfacing these kinds of conversations within our communities. because yeah, they'll make the difference. And yeah, so this is the part where I ask about your own story and whether you already knew about these endocrine disrupting chemicals in synthetic braiding hair and the connection possibly with the chronic health issues that we're seeing. And if you didn't know, what do you think now? Again, the goal for this sort of conversation is to be as constructive and as uniting as possible, because we've already been divided in so many ways. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.